Business athletes, what is going on? Welcome back for another action-packed episode. And this one, it's a little bit different. You know, a lot of the episodes thus far have been very tactical. They're a genre, they're a niche, you know, talking about gut health or peptides or brain chemistry. This one is the mental game, how to stay strong when life isn't going your way. Basically, how do you stay in a great mood when things are really challenging? How do you stay in a great mood when things are really challenging you? And I wanted to do this one because this has been my life's journey. Everything I do culminates together to essentially facilitate this. How can you live a good life? How can you have a happy, productive, positive day even when you are having all kinds of stuff going wrong? It's a skill worth mastering. And it is absolutely something you can master. I know this firsthand because I've seen over the years how I will handle situations very differently than I used to a number of years ago. So I think about a number of years ago about how I might have handled, you know, an altercation with another person, a personal challenge or a financial challenge. And I just did not have the coping skills. I did not have the tools. I did not have the awareness to step back and actually solve problems in a useful way. You know, most people, when they're faced with challenges, they'll be super negative. They get all up in their head. They're very pessimistic. They ruminate on the things they feel are going wrong or that they did wrong, and they stay stuck. They stay stuck in this doom spiral where they're just being manic and procrastinating over the stuff that they feel is going wrong. And what happens is that energy, that mental state facilitates more of the same. I mean, if you've ever been around someone who's really negative or pessimistic, or they're going through a hard time, but they're just not coping with it well, they're a real wet blanket. And the unfortunate, I will tell you something that a lot of people around you may not have the courage to tell you. That if you are someone that doesn't manage your challenges very well, meaning you go through something challenging and you get really negative, you get really self-destructive, you binge eat a bunch, you use a bunch of substances to just kind of numb yourself, and you just do a bunch of destructive things that you know just aren't good for you. Like if you do those things and you're around people, chances are you're not a very pleasurable person to be around. And that's just the truth. Quite frankly, you're probably an asshole to be around. And people don't really want to be around you. And that's very often why people that are in these doom spirals and these sort of self-loathing loops, they just don't have a lot of positive people in their life. Because any positive person that wants to help them, they're essentially repelling them with their energy. So the first thing I want to say is that no matter where you are at in this journey, and no matter how negative you feel right now, my intention is that you take a walk, you listen to this show, and you really absorb it. Really absorb it and do an honest audit of yourself, do an honest audit of where you're at, and absolutely put the things I'm going to share in this episode with you to the test. Absolutely leverage them today, use them. And don't just use them today. If you have to set alarm reminders on your phone to do some of these things every day for the next month, do it. Because I promise you, you won't necessarily see massive change by just doing a bunch of these things once. But you will absolutely see an accumulative effect if you do it consistently. So I say all this because I remember, and especially, you know, for people who are business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, parents, I would say everyone has their challenges, you know. like no matter what walk of life you've been through. I've worked with a number of higher profile, on the outside, very successful people, and they still have their challenges. That's the thing that people forget. They see someone who's like a rock star or a celebrity or a CEO, and they think, man, that must be lovely. I'd love to have all that money. But what they don't realize is as you climb the ladder, the pressures magnify. The pressures and the expectations magnify. And you have to get better at managing the pressure and stress. So you might as well start that now. If you ever are going to achieve anything substantial in your life, if you ever plan on creating that beautiful life that you want, you might as well learn how to manage the pressure now, because it's only going to scale as you grow. I've seen that absolutely firsthand myself. Like the pressures that I had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I wouldn't even bat an eyelid at now. And the pressures that I have now would have absolutely crushed me. Midlife crisis material back then. And it's not even to say that my life's super challenging, but it's just the expectations and the pressure that we have. And especially in an uncertain world. That's one of the other reasons why I wanted to have this discussion, because at the time of this episode, America and Israel have been at war with Iran for about 1 month. And it'll be interesting to look back on this episode to see what unfolded, to see how it eventuated, because we live in very uncertain times. And I think a lot of people, they're scared to express that. They're scared to express how they feel. They're not sure if they're overreacting or not. They're not sure if this is more serious than they think. You have a feeling, you have an intuition, and maybe you're sort of getting stuck in these information spirals where you're just consuming a lot of fear-based information, and it's really putting you into that sort of scarcity contraction. I'm going to talk about this idea of contractions and expansion in this conversation, and it's a really interesting observation that you can see across the board in physics and in nature around expansions and contractions. And most people are stuck in a contraction cycle, and they often get stuck in contraction cycles. So also realize that I share all this from a place of, back in the day, I was diagnosed with bipolar depression, severe social anxiety, ADHD. I was heavily medicated for over a decade. I was totally dependent on different substances, uppers and downers. So I would take a lot of Ritalin, which is Adderall, take a lot of Ritalin to kind of get me going for the day because I felt so zombified. And then obviously I was so wired by the end of the day from all the stimulants that I needed sleep aids and sleep pills and things like that to just try and help me even fall asleep. And I find that people, you don't set out with the intention of doing that, but it almost just happens as a byproduct of the pressure and stress. So I would say that if you're trying to determine if you're under a lot of pressure and stress, what I would say is this is some of the criteria. So if you find that you are addicted to a lot of substances on a daily basis, or even just addicted to some substances but you just can't break the cycle, no matter what it is, it could be a prescription or a street-based substance. If you need to use it every day, that's part of your challenge. The other thing is if you're using food. Food is the elephant in the room. Most people talk about alcohol, right? But what I would say is if you're overweight, that's a clear indicator that you have been using food as a self-soothing mechanism. Because you don't set out to be fat. Like you don't want to be overweight. But it's happening as a byproduct of your, inability to manage your stress. So your inability to manage your stress, manage your lifestyle, manage your routines is manifesting in the form of you being fat. And that's not even a judgment. That's just an observation. And I think it's important to just say, first of all, okay, yes, I clearly need to figure this out. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is like looking at the different things. Like I said, substances, pharmaceuticals, or illicit food is a big component. But other things too. So it could be like shopping, pornography, Netflix binging. People are even just addicted to like bad news media. If you're trolling X and Instagram all day, just consuming stuff on the war constantly. I know there's a lot of people that have fallen into that trap. And what happens is your your world of vision just becomes very, very tight. All you can think about is bombs going off. And you got to ask yourself, are you going to be in a good energetic state for your family, for your children, for your spouse, for your people, for your team, if you're just consuming a bunch of fear-based propaganda and stressful content? Remember, you aren't, like people say you are what you eat, right? You aren't just what you eat, you're what you consume digitally. You are your are you on a digital junk food diet? So you might have healthy diet. You're eating the rainbow. You hear me talk about all these things. Eat the rainbow. Get your broccoli sprouts in. Get your omega-3s in. You've got a healthy diet. But if you're consuming digital junk food, that's like then going out to McDonald's and eating a Big Mac. You're like offsetting all the good stuff you're doing with a really negative stimulus. And that in and of itself is going to contribute to the contraction phase that you're stuck in. And I remember when I was younger, and I would find that I would get caught in these like cycles of negativity where things weren't going how I wanted. You know, maybe I wasn't making the sales that I wanted, because I will tell you, like, entrepreneurship is really, really tough. It's really challenging. Most people don't make it. And one thing I will say is that any of you who support an entrepreneur, like you're subscribed to like my mastermind, or you've paid for coaching in some way, shape, or form, I can't tell you how appreciative I am of you. And also to recognize that, think of any of your entrepreneurial friends and do whatever you can to support them, because it's a very, very challenging path. And there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with it. And obviously, if you have a paid 9-to-5 job, that comes with its own set of challenges too. It doesn't mean that your life is easy. But the entrepreneurial path is very challenging. And I think it really does a number on a lot of people. Like, a lot of people have mental breakdowns. They'll get really addicted to substances. They'll just really struggle behind closed doors. And you jump onto social media and it's like a freaking highlight reel. Everyone's just sharing their wins. And you start to think to yourself, man, I suck. I'm a fat loser. Like, what's wrong with me? But you don't realize that you're comparing your outtakes to the highlight reels of everyone else. I'm telling you, like, I have lots of conversations with people, and people, regardless of what they show you on social media, they all go through their challenges. All of them. And I remember I would have a challenging day or a week, right? And it would just proliferate. So I couldn't get myself out of the rut. I would find that if I was going through a period where I wasn't making any sales, and there's been periods early on when I first came to the US and we were just kind of establishing our life and establishing our business, that we didn't have much money at all. And there were times where we were worried if we'd even be able to pay our mortgage. There were times where I remember crying because I just felt like a loser. You know, here I am, this young guy, husband, this is before we had children, and I can't even provide for my wife. I can't even provide for one person. How the heck am I meant to provide for a family? What a loser. I suck. And that's the thoughts that I had. And I thought to myself, man, am I ever going to be able to figure this out? And then what happens is you just get stuck in this self-loathing cycle. And very often people don't have an awareness of, you know, if you add junk food on top of that, and then you sit on your butt all day and you don't walk and you don't get any like sunlight exposure, and you're just not looking after yourself that well. When you do that, it just aggravates. It's like throwing gas on a house fire. You know, it's like throwing gas on the house fire, and you don't realize that you're making it worse. And so I'm going to talk about some of the mindset tools that I think, and I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, but I'm also going to give you some like hard tactics too, because I do think having hard tactics is really important. Now, the first thing, you know, and part of me wanting to share all this was because at the time of this recording, last week, my wife Lauren, her grandmother died. So her grandmother, her name was Blanche, but we called her Morsey. Her name for the family was Morsey. And she was a really beautiful person. You know, she was very spiritual. She just had a level of emotional intelligence that I think most people just would love to be around. Every time, she lives in Louisiana, And when we lived in Louisiana, we would go out and visit her once a week. And I remember just every time we went to her house, it was such a calming effect. You ever gone into someone's place and it's like an extension of them, and it's very like clean and beautiful and cozy, and the energy is just good. It's just good energy. Her place was like that. It just really calmed that nervous system. And everyone loved her. She could go through Walmart and just befriend anyone. And sometimes she'd talk to someone like they're best friends, and then afterwards you say, "Who was that?" And she's like, "I don't know, I just met them now." And she was she was like that. She had a purple streak in her white hair. She's like a punk granny. And she would tell us all these stories about traveling the world, going to Paris, going to Rome, Italy. She was always supportive of what we did. She'd ask us about our business stuff. And she's even on Facebook. She was a cheerleader on Facebook. She'd jump in and drop comments and leave positive comments on my posts. She's one of the only family members that even does that. Most of my family members don't comment at all on my stuff. And she did. And I'll never forget that. And so it was really sad when she passed away, because it was somewhat sudden. She went in for an angiogram, and something happened in the angiogram that caused her to have an open heart surgery. And then at that point, I think she just went downhill from there very quickly. And so I say all this because we had to take an emergency trip. We had to stop what we're doing up here in Tennessee, take an emergency trip with the kids down to see her, because she's never met my son Xander. She'd never met Xander in the flesh. And the one thing, I'm probably going to choke up saying this, the one thing that she said to Lauren's dad that she wished she had done was she wished she got to meet Xander. So we drove down, and on her last day here, she got to meet him. And it was beautiful. It was truly beautiful. And I'm so glad that we did it. And one of the themes that I kept having in my mind when I was going through this experience with Lauren's family was I was saying to myself, how do I want to remember this time? Like when I look back on this day, how do I want to remember these experiences? And what you can actually do is you can actually reverse engineer your memories. So by future pacing how you want to feel, thinking, okay, in a year from now, and 5 years from now, I want to think back to the day that Morsey left us, and it was just beautiful, and it was peaceful, and she got to meet Xander, and I was present, and I took it all in, and I didn't miss anything. And then when you think about those types of memories you want to have, you literally act into them now. So what type of person, who do you have to be today to engineer those memories? Do that. Do that. And so I kept asking myself that question around future pacing. But then I also kept saying to myself, this is the last time that I'm going to get to hold her hand. This is the last time that I'm going to get to rub her forehead. This is the last time I'm going to have a meal at her table in her house. Because obviously when we were in her house, we stayed in her house because she's got some spare rooms. And Lauren's family are going to sell the house. And so the likelihood of us ever being in that house again is very low. And so we'd have many amazing experiences and abilities to connect with her over the years in her house. And just sitting there thinking to myself, you know what? This is the last time I'm going to be having one of my meals at her table in her house. The last time. This is going to be the last time that I sit in her backyard and watch the birds on the feeders. And I just thought to myself, man, if that's not a powerful way to get yourself present and really help quell a lot of the fear and the noise in your mind, I don't know what is. So the first thing that I want to say is that as you go through your challenges right now, and I would say especially it's important if you're going through substantial things like what we just went through, Think about how you want to remember this time of your life a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What type of memories do you want to have of this time in your life? And then, who do you need to be, and what type of energy and what type of demeanor and what habits does that person have to create those memories? And you literally live into that. And you ask yourself that question every hour till you go to sleep, every day for as long as you need to make sure that you're on track. And then thinking to yourself, man, if this was the last time that I had this conversation with this person, this was the last time I took this beautiful walk on this track that I love, how would you feel? How would you take it all in? You know, if you knew that this was going to be the last time you would take a walk down the riverside in Pigeon Forge and watch the rushing river run down, how would you take it in? How would you enjoy it even more? Like how present would you be? And so I just wanted to say that, you know, through death, there's so much we can gain on perspective around what actually matters. It strips away all the noise, and it gives you perspective. Because very often, a lot of the things you're concerned about and fretting about, it's quite frankly just kind of silly. And that's not me diminishing your experience. I'll be the first to tell you that there's many things that I will catch myself worrying about at times that are just silly. They're trivial. It's like a storm in a teacup. It's not worth it. And so I think that idea of future pacing is really, really important. And it kind of ties into the next part around this idea of identity. And I wanted to read this to you. In fact, I'll have to pull it up on my phone. One of my friends sent me this. Oh, the post is unavailable. Basically, it was along the lines of when they were looking at Navy SEALs in training, and they were trying to figure out what is the difference between someone that passes BUDS and all the testing, all the hard testing to become a SEAL versus the average person that fails and doesn't see it through. What's the difference? And what they found was that it wasn't a difference in willpower. Like pretty much everyone has similar amounts of willpower on a chemical level. But what's different is your identity. So when you simply identify as someone who is a leader, when you identify as someone who doesn't give up, when you identify as someone who is a warrior, you will live into that. And think about this. It's not hard for you, if you don't smoke, it's not hard for you to not smoke right now, isn't it? You know, you're not trying to fight the urge to have a cigarette because you don't identify. You identify as a non-smoker. If you're not drinking right now, and you don't consider yourself a drinker, an alcoholic, in fact, you consider yourself someone who doesn't drink, you're not fighting the urge to like not drink right now. It's just not. It's not in your repertoire. It's not in your nature. And so I often think to myself, you know, who am I? And who do I want to become? Especially who do I want to become? And I think about the identity of that person. And then I look for examples of what that type of person does. So for example, one of the powerful things that I've noticed in my mastermind groups is that by showing up every day and demonstrating leadership and demonstrating how you navigate challenging times, I feel like people start to absorb that identity as well. They start to become someone who shows up more often. They start to be someone who like pushes through the challenges when normally they would have quit. You know, one of the things that I really made an effort to do last week when we were traveling to see Lauren's grandmother was I still posted every day. I posted in my stories. I documented the journey. I modeled and demonstrated all the habits that I was still doing. I still got little workouts in. We still ate pretty well. Everything was kind of locked in. And I modeled and demonstrated it all during a time when most people would probably flip-flop. And I wanted to show people what it looks like. I wanted to show you what that looks like. And so then you can think to yourself, okay, that's the identity that I want to cultivate. And you know what? one of the best ways, you probably think to yourself, well, okay, I get it, but how do I shift my identity? One of the best ways to do that is you have to immerse yourself in a community or an environment where that identity is just the norm. If you don't want to be a smoker, you want to hang around a bunch of healthy fitness people, right? If you hang around 5 fat people, you'll be the 6th. If you hang around 5 athletic, jacked people, you will be the 6th. So the easiest, best way to change your identity is you've got to get into proximity with as many people that already have a good capacity of that identity as possible. So that's where masterminds, hangouts, workshops, meetups, online groups, support networks, all of that is so important. Because you can have the best plans in the world, and I've said this before. A lot of people will probably think, I don't need to get any coaching from Fraser. I don't need to get any nutritional stuff from anyone. I can just go to ChatGPT and just explain to ChatGPT what I need help with, and it's going to give me the perfect plan. And the first thing that I'll say is AI is only as good as the questions you can ask it, and so most people don't actually ask the right questions in the first place. I've seen this firsthand. Like, most people won't actually get ideal plans out of AI because you don't know what you don't know. So there'll be blind spots in your health. There'll be blind spots in your routine that you won't actually mention to AI. So it won't actually pick up on those bottlenecks to make sure it integrates them into the feedback it gives you. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is that it's not an information problem. We live in a day and age where you can go to YouTube University and you can go to AI and basically learn anything. It's not an information problem. Because if it was only information, then at this point now with YouTube University and Grok and Claude and ChatGPT, why is everyone not in phenomenal shape? Why is everyone not freaking millionaires? You would imagine if it was just information, everyone would be a millionaire and everyone would be jacked. And most people are neither. Why? Because your identity, because your environment. And that is why being in ecosystems and having mentors who have the identity that you want to live into is absolutely pivotal. That in and of itself is often the best part of the investment. It's not even really the information as much as it is proximity to the identity. Think about this. If you have a fruit tree, a lemon tree, and you want to grow some lemons, you want to make some lemonade. If you plant that fruit tree in clay, you can throw all the fertilizer and all the water and the sunlight on it you want. But if it's growing in clay, hard clay, do you think it's going to have a great time? Do you think it's going to yield tons of lemons, or do you think it's going to struggle? You can keep watering that thing. You can put it under lights and all sorts. It still won't thrive. That's the same with having tactics from AI. If you try to apply those tactics in your current environment, under your current identity, you will keep facilitating the same result. That's how important this is. And so some of the tools I'm going to share with you kind of tie into this whole identity thing. You know, I had to learn this the hard way. There were times where I just felt like I'd never achieve anything. And I was like a stupid loser. And it's embarrassing. You know, there's been many, many struggles. And I know that you have and you go through your struggles too. Many of you are listening to this right now, I'm sure, are probably going through a challenging time in your life. And you're really questioning, like, can I do this? And you're questioning what's wrong with you. Right? I understand. I get it. One of the things that I think is important outside of the future pacing and outside of the proximity to identity, and being clear about that identity too, by the way. Like, you need to be around people that are tenacious and positive and ambitious. And that's part of their makeup. That's part of their identity. So anytime you face a challenge, they can help you shape your perspective around that challenge, which is what I call reframing. So reframing is basically like, regardless of what is happening right now with this challenging situation, where's the positive lesson in this? Where's the wisdom? So when I go through a challenging season in business, what is this trying to teach me or show me about how I need to see these challenges? When I go through a sense of loss and Lauren's grandmother passes away and I'm dealing with the emotionality of that and I'm seeing Lauren cry and upset, what is the wisdom and the beauty in this experience? What is it teaching me? All those things that I mentioned about what if this was the last time, and really stripping away the stuff that does not matter. That's the wisdom. That's the lesson. One of the things that I do every single day in my mastermind group is I do what's called morning mindset messages. So every day, regardless of where I am, I did it every day while we were traveling to Louisiana. I did them every day last year when Lauren was in the hospital having subchorionic hemorrhages with our son Xander before he was born. Every day. I haven't missed a single day. And I go in there at about 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I leave some mindset nuggets. What's something useful today? What's something that my people need to hear? What's something that I need to hear? And I just riff on it. And I tell you that ability to focus on the reframe, to focus on the wisdom, to focus on the lesson, and start your day every day that way is so important. What we focus on expands. And so I do this first thing in the morning because that kind of sets the energetic tone for my day. So I would say to you, what does that morning routine look like where you are doing some type of prayer or meditation or some mindfulness technique? Heck, I even encourage my people to, when they post up their accountability posts in the group, to drop in a little gratitude post too. They'll drop in a couple of sentences around something that they're grateful for. It sounds cheesy, right? It sounds corny. But I'm telling you, the people that do that more, they have a higher level of emotional intelligence. They're less reactive. They're less chaotic. They're just more locked in with their processes, with their diet, with their training, with their structure. So that yields a better real world outcome. So if you're inconsistent with stuff like that, that's what you need to be focusing on. You know, if say, for example, if you're going through a challenging season financially, and you're like, man, I feel like I'm really struggling. What do I do? What I would say to you is think to yourself, what skills do I have that other people would really value, and how can I monetize those skills? You know, some of you guys are really talented with baking. Some of you are really talented with painting or artwork. Some of you are really talented with AI stuff. How can you get onto like Upwork or Fiverr and use one of these contracting websites to sell and promote your talents, your skills? How can you start a YouTube channel about baking? How can you start a YouTube channel about using AI? How can you put your skills out there and help other entrepreneurs with all the AI stuff that's happening? There's so many ways that you can monetize your passions, your knowledge, and your skills. So that right away is a positive reframe to a challenge of lack, a challenge of a lack of financial means. The next thing I would say is, how can you be a connector? You know, for my people, depending on the level, I offer affiliate commissions and little bonuses to people when they refer family and friends to me. And so for that reason, can you be a connector? How can you connect people? Right? How can you talk about, and I've got some people that are in my Business Athlete Council that actually generate income because they have brought people in. And so their whole membership's paid for, and they actually make some money because they chose to show up, talk about and share what I'm doing in a positive way, being a lighthouse, inspiring people, giving them hope, and those people move to action. That's how you reframe. So rather than just sitting there moping, struggling, feeling sorry for yourself, right? Sometimes if you're going through a challenging season and you've been wheel spinning and you've been gaining weight and you're not in shape, I would say part of that is the reframe would be you've got to stop bootlegging stuff. You've been avoiding investing in yourself with some type of coaching. You've been trying to figure it out yourself. You've been going and watching YouTube videos. You've been going and plugging into ChatGPT, but you haven't been focusing on the environment and the identity and being in proximity with people that think this way. And so you're just wheel spinning. And at a certain point, you've got to realize that if you just keep doing that, you're going to keep getting the same result. And before you know it, you're going to be 40, 50, 60, and half your life's gone before you. So the reframe is, you know what? I've been avoiding investing in myself because I just can't, I feel like I can't justify the cost. But now at this point, I realize that I am my best ROI. So return on investment. I am my best return on investment. If I don't improve myself physically, mentally, and with my health, I'm going to continue to wheel spin. I'm going to continue to dog paddle. And what is the consequence of that when it comes to achieving my goals and dreams? So that's the reframe. That kind of gets you moving, kind of rips the Band-Aid off and gets you to take action, right? Or if you're doing really well with your diet and then all of a sudden you have like a binge session, the reframe is what went wrong and how can you look at what happened during that day so you can put things in place where you don't do that again. You know, say for example, you were stressed out and you went through the grocery store hungry because you hadn't had your meal yet. And because you're hungry, you end up grabbing a bunch of extra snacks and things. So then when you get home, now you've got a bunch of snacks in front of you. Well, next time, the reframe is maybe have a proper meal before you go grocery shopping or order the food from Instacart. That way you're not going in there reactive and stressed and hungry. Or you're just getting it delivered to your place. So you're not having to even like browse the end caps in the junk food aisles. That's the reframe. I'm telling you now, there are reframes for every single challenge that you will face in this life. And I would say that one of the most powerful reasons for people to be in my group is because I'm very, very good at drilling into the reframes and helping people really pinpoint quickly how they need to refocus and recalibrate their way of thinking so they can make lemonade from the situation. So reframing is huge. And again, daily gratitude practices, meditation, that type of stuff, having positive conversations with people who have that identity that you want is so important. I found that I've invested multiple six figures into coaching, into mastermind groups and coaching over the last few years. And I will tell you that the biggest thing that helped me the most wasn't even so much the information I got. It's the type of identity I was able to adopt and metabolize by being around people that were doing way better than me. You know, when you get into a room where you're around a bunch of people who are making 8 and 9 figures and just doing really well in business and in life and really well with their marriage, all of a sudden, where you're at, you're the small fish in the big pond. But that's actually a good thing. You know, if you're the most successful person in the room, you need to find a new room. If you're the most healthy, fit person in the room, you need to find a new room. I would encourage you to lean into that. And the reframe, for example, if when you commit to something, one of the common things that I see people do is they always think that change is off in the distance somewhere. I've had conversations with people, oh, hey man, I'm traveling with the family right now. Let me circle back with you when I'm back in the US at home. And I think to myself, you're setting yourself up to fail. I look at you and your children are overweight, you're overweight. You're demonstrating terrible habits to them. You're instilling these types of values into them. And then the thing is when you get back home, you're hoping that you have the perfect environment to get in shape. What happens when you travel again? What happens when life throws another curveball at you? You're going to do what everyone else does, and you're going to relapse and implode and go back to square one. And I say that from a place of being confrontational and from a place of love. Because most people, it's a blind spot. They don't realize that. And so I tell people, start in the storm. Start in the eye of the storm. You know, are you moving house? Are you going through a financial challenge right now? Are you going through some challenges in business? Good. Awesome. Start now. Start while it's really uncomfortable. Why? Because that's how you raise your baseline. That's the reframe. That's how you raise your challenges. In a world where people feel the fear, they feel the economic uncertainty, and they contract, and they come up with all these reasons why they need to cut costs and why they can't do this and why they can't do that. Like Warren Buffett says, when people are fearful, be greedy, and when people are greedy, be fearful. So you do the opposite to the crowd. So when everyone is being contractive and scarce and canceling things and playing defense and shrinking, you need to literally lean into and force yourself to do the opposite, which goes against that natural physiology. It will feel so uncomfortable, but I promise you, the most successful people, they understand this and they do this. They don't wait till things are easier. They don't wait till they're in a better situation. They go now. They do what they can right now, even though it's uncomfortable. And they just take massive action and they move quickly. So that reframe is powerful. Now, outside of some of these mental tactics, there are some physical things too. Because think about this. You can apply all those mental tactics and you can be in an environment with good people and people who have a higher level identity and good emotional intelligence and who are starting in the storm and getting out of their own way to invest in themselves. By the way, one of the things that you need to do more is you need to invest in yourself with more coaching. Most people don't do that. Most people spend money on clothes, cars, material things, and they spend very little on mentoring and coaching, especially in the areas that they suck at. And I would say that's the area you will get the most expansion and growth. So if you're fat, if you're overweight, if you're not healthy, if you're not really dialed in, you getting some health coaching would be most likely the biggest ROI lever you could pull in 2026 towards all of your goals. I genuinely mean that. I've seen it happen in real time, many, many times. And you can just choose to justify and say, I'm not ready yet. Well, you'll never be ready if you have that attitude. And that's what most people do. So you have to rip the Band-Aid off and go now to create the downstream effect. But the way you drive that effect, the chemistry of your psychology in your body, so your hormone systems and your neurochemistry will have a real effect on how well you can stick with this stuff. See, if you are sitting on your butt all day, you're not getting any sunlight, you're staying up late, you're snacking a ton at nighttime, you're doing a bunch of drugs and alcohol and things, that chemistry is going to sabotage you so badly. You will feel terrible. People don't realize that. They don't realize that they have more control over their biochemistry than they know. And I know this firsthand because I had gone through all the mental health issues I had, and I had to get off all those psych medications. I've been medication-free now for 12 years. But how did I do that? All the things I'm about to share with you. And by the way, if you get value out of this episode, please freaking share it. Especially right now, people need to hear this. People are fearful about what's happening. They're like, are we heading into a freaking nuclear holocaust? What is Armageddon coming? What is going on? What's happening with the economy? What's happening with America? Like, what is happening? There's a lot of challenging things, and we are really on the precipice of substantial change. Most people don't realize this. We are very, very close to the US dollar decoupling from being the global currency. And most people don't even understand the mechanisms around that at all. And so if you don't understand the ramifications of that, you will not be prepared. The way you get prepared is by getting yourself as healthy and vibrant and fit as possible so you can think clearly. So when you think clearly, you pull the right levers consistently, and you can become that person you need to be to weather all the storms in your life and come out the other end and actually thrive. So the first thing, when it comes to physiology drives psychology, the things you need to understand, these are things I do every day: walking, sunlight, training, and movement. And movement in general is just like yard work, it's kicking the ball around with your child, it's any type of movement. It's vacuuming the house. Training is lifting weights or like doing some type of like form of training. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, weightlifting, CrossFit, whatever. Sunlight and walking. I will tell you that you need to stack these things into your daily routine every single day, especially the walking, especially the sunlight. Sunlight, walking, and movement have to be every day, and then training, obviously, depending on your age and depending on your situation. It might be every second day. I personally train every day, and I just cycle through different systems that I have. Now, you may not want to do that, but what I would be doing is I would be moving every day. Basically, you need to get a sweat on every day in some way, shape, or form. So let's say, for example, you lift weights every second day. On the days between, I'd throw a weighted vest on and I'd go for a little ruck. So you're still getting a sweat on. And you're stacking it outside, so you're getting some sunlight and some walking as well. That combination of things, so the walking, the sunlight, the training, the movement, that's going to help increase blood flow through your body. It's going to help with oxygen transportation to your brain, and it's going to help with your brain chemistry. Dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, GABA. The reason why you feel crappy is because those brain chemicals are depleted and suboptimal. There are physical things we can do to help re-stimulate those chemicals, and these are some of them. What I do is I do this trifecta stack that I really love. It is I walk outside in the light, and I add human connection into it too. So while I'm walking, I'll send a positive message to about 5 people every day. So it's usually a quick 30 to 60 second voice message, a quick 30 to 60 second video message, or a quick 30 to 60 second sort of, I do voice to text. So it will probably be about 3 to 5 sentences. And I pour into that person. What's something positive they need to hear today? How can I say I'm thankful for them in some way, shape, or form? What is worth acknowledging in them about? Like, what would they like to hear today that's going to help them feel better today? How can I get outside myself, my problems, my challenges, and be of service to someone else? The people that actually have the best energy and they're in the best mood often are the ones that serve others more often. The people that are inherently selfish because they're all up in their head thinking about me, poor me, my situation, I suck. That's selfish ways of thinking, and because of that, you don't get any good energy coming back to you. You need to make sure that every time you're out walking in the sun, you add some type of human connection component into that. And so I will do a quick couple of talking head videos on Instagram, and I share those to Instagram and my Facebook. I'll sometimes go live in my mastermind groups. That's where the morning mindset messages come from too, by the way. So I'm doing that every day. And there'll obviously be students and people that I appreciate, and I'll drop quick messages to them. And I stack that on top of the sunlight and the movement. And I promise you, that trifecta done multiple times per day is really powerful. That's definitely how it contributes to you being in a great mood when things are not going well in your life. And I would say as a minimum, doing that 2 times a day, at some point in the morning and some point in the late afternoon, minimum 2 times, if not more. I do it every hour for about 5 minutes. Every hour for about 5 minutes, I'll go and I will walk in the light, and obviously I'll break the 5 messages up through the day. So I might send 1 message every time I do a little walking session. So I'm doing 5 people total throughout the day. And it just creates beautiful conversation. It creates connection. It creates a sense of purpose, and you get outside your problems and yourself. So if you're not hitting 15,000 steps every day, and you're not getting 2 outdoor walking sessions, and you're not connecting with 5 people, and you're not like moving, yard work, vacuuming, walk the dog, play with your kids, and you're not weight training at least every second day, that's where you need to begin. And so you need to get into groups and environments where people do that as a standard operating system. That's why I keep encouraging you to get into either my Anomaly Project 6-week course or my Business Athlete Council, because people do this stuff every day just as a byproduct of being a damn operator. By being a professional, by being a high-level individual, they do it every day as a byproduct. When you see everyone out there getting after it and doing that, it will be so much easier for you to do the same thing. I promise you. You will absorb that energy via osmosis, and before you know it, you will be one of us. You will be one of us. Pillar number 4 is sleep. I tell you now, sleep equals emotional stability. When you're going through seasons, when you're going through challenging times financially in business and relationships, if you stay up late and you watch a bunch of crap on YouTube or Netflix, and you're just staying up for the sake of staying up, and then you're waking up and you're feeling tired in the morning and you're not recovering, that is part of your problem. That will be contributing to your irritability and to your inability to manage your stress with your job. If you're going through a challenging season in business, you staying up to 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, if it's causing an impaired sleep score, that's part of your problem. You need to get to bed earlier. It will take time to train yourself to do that too. So what I would suggest is walk your bedtime back and walk your wake time back. So let's say, for example, you wake up at 6 o'clock every morning and you go to bed at 11. For the next week, get up at 5 and wake up at get up at 5 and go to sleep at 10 and wake up at 5. And the next week, go to sleep at 9 and wake up at 4. And at that point, you might find that's substantial enough for you. I would actually encourage you to do more, because I think most people tend to have more productive routines and more of a positive effect of getting to bed earlier. Most of the people that I see who have really good sleep scores, that manage stress really well, that sleep well, go to bed between sort of 7:30 and 9 o'clock at night. Between 7:30 and 9. I go to bed at about 7:45, 8 o'clock. My family's asleep by 8. And I'll wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. And my sleep scores are higher than most people's because for whatever reason, going to bed earlier maximizes that deep and REM sleep score. I get the high levels of those things. So I say this to you because your sleep will drive your sanity. If you've ever gone through a period of insomnia, you'll know how it really, really affects your motivation, your drive, everything. It can really do a number on your mental health. And so, a few things. You've got to cut back on the caffeine and the stimulants. If you're using a bunch of that stuff, use it in the morning, but stop using things at 10 a.m. Start finding replacements for things, like a mushroom adaptogen coffee instead of just doing a ton of coffee, right? Instead of drinking energy drinks, just drink a Zevia soda water instead. Drink a Zevia soda water, get out for 5 minutes and take a walk in the sun. Trust me, you will have a good energetic response over time to that more than just pounding a Monster energy drink. I would say don't eat too close to bedtime. Cut your food off a few hours before you go to sleep. Turn the air temperature down in your house. Put blue light blocking filters on all your devices and stop using your phone about at least an hour, I would say 30 minutes to an hour before you go to sleep. Read books, listen to just like an audio on Spotify. We put relaxing Spotify music on, and Lauren will just read our kids some books and we'll just hang out. We put some red light on, so we put on a Hooga red light lamp. We throw on some lavender or stress away essential oils in the diffuser and we'll diffuse some essential oils. So between dropping the air temperature, between the relaxing oils, between the Hooga red light lamp, the disconnecting from the tech, the cutting the food early enough, and getting outside during the day and walking, those things have a really positive effect on your sleep. They really do. And you've just got to train yourself to get to bed earlier. You just got to shift all your routines earlier, and then you need to front load your morning with productive things that kind of allow you to look excited to get up in the morning. See, one of the things is if you don't have anything to be excited about in the morning, you're not going to enjoy getting up early. So you've got to think about, like, what YouTube channels do you enjoy watching? What stuff do you enjoy to learn from? Like, what do you enjoy doing? Do a little bit of that in the morning early to give yourself that thing you're looking forward to. You're anchoring all these processes to something you enjoy. That's how you anchor the habit. So I love to just watch a little bit of YouTube. And I enjoy that. I enjoy sitting there. I enjoy sipping on my coffee, having a little protein bar and that I like the taste of, and watching some YouTube. And so that is rewarding to me. I enjoy that. So I anchor my morning routine to that. And that's why, for me, I enjoy getting up early. It's not even like a task for me at this point. I enjoy it. You've got to nurture yourself and get to that place. And again, proximity to the identity of the people who do that. It's key. But sleep is really, really important. I've done entire episodes on sleep. So go through my episodes, listen to that, because I would say that that is a huge component of your optimization. Another part of it, like I mentioned, is the light, sound, and environment. So that kind of ties into everything that I just mentioned. You need to have processes and steps and systems where you wind down at nighttime. It's like you're shifting the transmission of a vehicle. If you get to bedtime and you're watching a bunch of stressful stuff on Instagram and you're blasting yourself with a bunch of blue light from your phone and you just ate a bunch of junk food, your system's not going to be geared up for optimal sleep or recovery at all. So I find taking a little walk before or after dinner, winding down the stimulus so you're not consuming a bunch of stressful stimulating stuff, turn all the notifications off on your social media, no push notifications to your phone, diffuse those essential oils, turn on some Himalayan salt lamps and some diffuser lit candles. I've got that, so the candle lit diffusers, so like we have a lot of essential oil diffusers, and you can set them to like a candle tone, so they're just kind of orange and they flicker. We set those, and we have Himalayan salt lamps and a Hygge red light panel. And I promise you, like between the air temperature, the light, the sound, the relaxing spa music from Spotify or YouTube, and we play that in the background, that wind down process helps a lot. It helps a lot. And then obviously what I would say kind of tying into sleep is that, for the ladies that maybe are going through some menopause, or if you're a guy, I would say you've got to get your hormone systems dialed in and checked. Like if you're going through menopause or you're going through andropause or you're just dealing with some suboptimal blood work, that in and of itself can have an effect on your sleep. So if you're a female that's going through some menopausal shifts, or if you're a guy that's got low testosterone, or your thyroid is off, or you've got a ton of inflammation, or that your C-reactive protein scores, or there's something not right in your blood work, those are the things that we want to pinpoint and troubleshoot and fix. That's where I come in. I can look at the labs, I can look at the blood work and really help you figure that out in an intelligent way. You might say, I can just go to ChatGPT to do that. You can, but you won't have good systems to integrate into your routine because you don't know what you don't know. Like you won't understand that, okay, am I adding these foods in, but what happens if I have a sensitivity to these foods? Or what happens if these foods are sort of creating another negative effect somewhere else in my bloodstream? What if like they're meant to help improve my insulin sensitivity, but at the same time they're making my cholesterol profiles worse, which does happen. So I say this just because don't just think that it's just an information problem. Part of it is you need to have a bird's eye view of the type of environment and the type of lifestyle you want to create so you can integrate the right systems in. But I would definitely say that lab work, blood work, as it ties into sleep, as it ties into optimal health, is a really important part of that equation from a tactical standpoint. Another part is your nutrition and your brain chemistry, meaning food is like software and your body and mind are the hardware. When you are feeling anxious, when you're feeling low, you do realize that you slamming back a bunch of junk food is just absolutely going to make you feel worse. So if you feel worse, that's why. And so at a certain point, I just got to a place where I was so sick and tired of feeling like crap. I just knew that I had to change. I was like, man, I can't bring this food into my house. I need to get mentoring to help with this. I need to have a bigger goal. I need to have a bigger reason. I need to take full responsibility of like what I'm going through. I need to not be a wet blanket and so mopey. And I need to focus on shifting my identity by being around people that have the identity that I want. And part of that is I've got to start being a better person so those people actually want to be around me. And when I started working on all those things, it really does start to have a compound effect. So what I would tell you right out the gate is when you're going through challenging seasons, this is why the quality of your diet matters even more. That software is going to drive all the chemistry in your body. So when you eat different foods, it's going to trigger different types of hormonal changes, and it's going to trigger different types of brain chemical changes. And so people that have anxiety, that have depression, that don't feel good, it's a brain inflammation problem, often driven by junk food, sweets, poor diet. So if you're eating healthy meals, but you're still snacking on junk, you're still triggering the negative response. You've got to lock that in. And so part of it is like things like eat the rainbow. With every meal, where's your green, where's your red, where's your orange food? Stick with foods that are predominantly one ingredient. 90+% of your diet needs to be foods with one ingredient. Sweet potato is just sweet potato. Broccoli is just broccoli. Blueberries are just blueberries. If you can make 90+% of your diet that, and then the other 10% is what I call healthy food upgrades. So rather than slamming back donuts, get yourself some of the Macro Mike protein baking mixes and make yourself some protein donuts. Make yourself some protein brownies. Make yourself a protein mug cake. And if you find yourself saying, oh, well, I just don't really like the taste of it, well, stay out of shape and overweight then. If you're not willing to embrace change and recognize that your taste buds will shift, you're so addicted and used to tons of sugar that that's what lights your brain up. If you're not willing to lean into that change, you will forever wheel spin. That's a choice that we all face. I don't like the taste of broccoli sprouts. I don't like the taste of a lot of green drinks. I do them every day. And I tell people, do you want to be a giant infant? If you want infantile results, act like a big baby when it comes to food and turn your nose up at things and go, it wasn't really that good. I don't care. If it's going to help you achieve the outcome you want, you need to suck it up and you need to do it. Recognizing that once you start to break that pattern, your taste buds will shift. And when you start to feel better and see the improvements in your life, it will become such a rewarding thing. It will be so rewarding and you'll be so proud of yourself. So I would say in general, your diet dictates your mood, your focus, your emotional stability. The key drivers are blood sugar instability or insulin resistance, inflammation, like C-reactive protein, ApoB, homocysteine, and your gut health. If your gut health isn't good, it's typically going to affect your sleep, and that's typically going to then affect your psychology. I often see this trifecta where people don't sleep well, their gut health is not good, and they're very OCD and manic and overthinking and quite neurotic because they're so depleted and deprived. So you definitely need to walk through some gut rehab protocols. Go listen to the gut health episode that I've done. Things like glutamine powder, seed symbiotic, clean whole foods, eat the rainbow, naturally occurring fermented foods in little microdoses at first. Betaine, HCl, and pepsin for stomach acid concentrations. Things like aloe vera, peppermint, ginger, and lemon all help soothe that digestion. A good quality digestive enzyme to help break food down more effectively. But again, episode number 11 is all on the macro bowl principle. I talk all about nutrition stuff. Go listen to that episode. That's where you'd be focusing. That's where you'd begin. And like I said, get into my 6-week Anomaly Project course or get into my Business Athlete Council, because this is going to be the areas that will have a really pronounced effect on your ability to execute all the sort of philosophical and metaphysical concepts more effectively. It really does play a big role. And what I would also say is go online and do the Braverman test. Braverman. Do it. There's a free version, there's like a $20 paid version. It gives you an approximation of your brain chemistry. It asks you a bunch of questions, and it will help you decipher what's going on with your dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, and GABA. And if you can then look at those scores and add in certain foods and supplements that help optimize those scores, you will start to see a positive shift. I've got people off all kinds of psychiatric medications and stuff by adopting this framework and helping them optimize their chemistry so they think better. And when you think better, you make better decisions. When you think better, you perform at a higher level. Often I see people make more money, and I see people have better relationships. So I see the quality of their life massively improves because they're optimizing that chemistry. The thing to remember with all of this, control the controllables. Pillar number 7. You feel overwhelmed because you want to feel like you need to control the economy, politics, geopolitics, wars, macroeconomics, the stock market, other people's reaction to you. But your power lies in your habits, your daily rituals and your routines, your morning routine, your evening routine, your actions, your standards. the way that you choose to respond to different things, the boundaries that you set with people. And so your ability to have a good morning routine, have a good evening routine, your ability to lock these principles around walking and movement and light and training and every day by getting in proximity to people that are that have the result that you want, focusing on nutrition, focusing on the Braverman test, get the blood work run. You don't have to do all these things today, by the way, but just start them. Start them. I think part of that controlling the controllables comes down to reducing cognitive load. Part of your challenge is that you're making too many decisions. There's a reason why I pretty much wear the same clothes every day. I have multiple black t-shirts, I have multiple black tank tops, I have multiple black pants. Why? Because I just wear the same thing every day pretty much. I cycle through the same thing. And it's very similar with my food. I will automate a lot of principles and processes in my life so I'm not standing in the wardrobe hemming and hawing for 10 minutes about what to wear. You've got to find ways to streamline what you plan to eat, how you plan to dress, what you plan to do on a daily basis. The more non-negotiables you can create, the less variables and decisions you have to make, the more mental bandwidth you will have for everything. Also, too much input, meaning too much distraction. Most people have their push notifications turned on. They'll respond to messages right away. That's a red flag. You need to turn all your push notifications off your phone because all of those things are tapping into your cognitive bandwidth. They're draining your cognitive load. So I will turn all my push notifications off. I don't check my email first thing in the morning. I don't check my text messages. And I go in intentionally and check these things during the day when I'm ready, once I've taken my walk, when I'm in a good mental space. So important. And it all comes back to like a nice, consistent morning routine, a nice, consistent evening routine, having daily structure, like what time are you training each day? What time are you planning to eat each day? Make as many of those things structured processes in your day as possible. If you're just going through your day and just winging it and eating whenever you feel like it, stop being sloppy. That's what an amateur does. If you want to be a pro, if you want to be a sharpshooter, like a true business athlete, you need to start conducting yourself like one. Not like a sloppy amateur that's just flying by the seat of their pants, doing whatever, whenever. Get more intentional. So structure out your day. Trust me, when you automate those processes, you get so much more mental bandwidth back. So much more. Another part is win the first hour. That morning routine is so important. Get up in the morning, super hydrate, drink a bunch of water. I do the Spring Dragon Longevity Tea. Get a walking pad and a standing desk and walk first thing in the morning. Obviously, if you wake up really early, you might not walk outside right away. But you need to walk within the first 30 minutes of waking. That way, you will absolutely notice a positive change. Put on something positive to start your day. So pick a positive YouTube channel. Pick a positive podcast. Pre-select it the night before. So when you get up in the morning, you just hit play and you consume. Don't go in and look at a bunch of fear-based stuff straight away. Protect your space from that digital junk food. So important. You got to remember also, stack small wins. Don't think about home runs or strikeouts. Most people think, well, if I can't do a 10 out of 10 effort, I'm going to do 0 out of 10. That's not a good way to think about anything. What I would say to you is, what does it look like to do 3 out of 10? What would it look like to do a 5 out of 10? So instead of doing a full 60-minute gut-busting workout, what does it look like to do 10 minutes? How can you keep the habit intact? Oh, you had a crappy meal? Grab a fist of microgreens and have that alongside the meal you just had. That's a progress. That's a small win. If you can compound lots of those small wins, that's what actually changes the trajectory of what you're on. Go for a walk. Complete that one task. Drink a bunch of that water. Clean up your desk. Clean up your environment. Make it more organized and presentable. Take a little bit of pride in your appearance. I always tell people, if your hair's all overgrown and you're unshaven and everything, stop being a slob. When you are a slob physically, you're going to feel like a slob mentally. I had to really lean into this when I first started working on recovering from my mental health challenges. Because most people that have mental health issues, they are very disheveled. And what I realized was that when I jump in the shower quickly, I freshen up, I put a nice smelling moisturizer on. I do my hair. I trim my beard. I get myself presentable. You will feel better mentally. Your physical appearance is an outward representation and manifestation of what's happening internally. Honor that. Take a little bit of time and lean into that. So when you go through today, think about all of these things. Guys, when you go through challenges, you've got to realize that there is a gift and wisdom in all of this stuff. It's what we focus on expands. The language you choose to use. The self-talk you have. You know, someone's like, oh, this is such a disaster. And what I would be saying is, I will figure this out. This is challenging, but I'm going to figure this out. What do I need to do to figure this out? Let me go take a walk first. Right? Rather than, oh, this is awful. Right? You've got to think about how you frame the challenges you're in. Oh, you've put a big bet on yourself. Maybe you invested a bunch of money into coaching, and you feel like you're dropping the ball. Well, how can you take more accountability for where you're at and just start imperfectly and focus on that 3 out of 10 rather than trying to hit a 10 out of 10 or nothing? How can you learn to speak more kindly to yourself? How can you get out and stop ruminating and marinating over old issues you've had? Think about what you could do today. How do you need to be today? What's a small win? What's the next best step? What's the next best step you can do today to improve how you think and feel? It really has come back to acceptance and ownership, guys. You know, one of the things that it's a stark reality to me is that when you look out there in the political world, most of these politicians, they are the opposite of taking ownership and accepting crappy situations they've put all of us in. They blame other people. They're full of smoke and mirrors and deception, constantly gaslighting, constantly blaming other people. They all suck. Your ability to take massive extreme ownership of your situation. I've gone through some really tough business situations before, and I realized it was my fault. I took responsibility of that, because if you don't make it your problem, if you don't make it your fault in a positive way, you don't have the ability to change it, because it's someone else. When you take ownership, you put all the power into your hands to create change. And I'm not saying blame yourself in a negative, gaslighting, shameful way. Blame yourself in a way where you're stepping up to the plate. That idea of like pressure is a privilege. Like, I want a big life. I want a lot of responsibility because I want to live this beautiful, amazing, impactful life. But it's going to take me stepping up and taking massive ownership, man. So whatever position you find yourself in now, someone's been in your place before and they've made it through. You've got to change the way that you're operating and seeing, because if you keep doing the same things today, you're going to keep generating the same result tomorrow. So I say all this because I would tell you a couple of things. One, if you haven't listened to all my podcast episodes, go listen to one every day for the next month. One every day for the next month. Take a walk. Every day for the next month, listen. Get 15,000 steps. 2 outdoor sessions. Get the light on the skin, light in the eyes. Make sure you lock your macro bowl systems in. Listen to episode number 11. Get into my coaching rotation. Get into proximity with people who just think this way as a freaking byproduct, rather than bootstrapping and bootlegging and guessing and hoping and just praying for the best, because that's what's got you to this point so far. And remember, what's got you here won't get you there. So yes, just because something's worked for you before, it's not necessarily going to be the thing that gets you to the next level. Most of the time, it's not. And remember, get outside your own challenges today. How can you be of service to some other people, man? Yes, you go through challenges. Yes, things in your life might be tough. Yes, you might feel fearful. But go out there and connect with 5 people today and pour into them and tell them some beautiful things about them. And listen to their challenges for a second and help them solve some of their stuff. You will feel so much better. And remind yourself, you've made it through 100% of your worst days so far. You've made it through 100% of your worst days so far. And the thing I want you to remember, and I'm going to come back to this from the very beginning, the greatest act of self-mastery is to stay in a great mood when nothing seems to be going your way. So today, when you feel the adversity, when you feel the fear, how do you want to remember this time in your life? When you look back, do you want to be proud that you stuck it out, you got the training done, you got the coaching, you leaned in, you stepped up, even if it wasn't perfect, even if you failed forward, even through the tears in your eyes and the pain and the loss that you faced? We all go through massive loss. We all go through challenges. How we choose to grow and learn from that, that's a decision. That's a choice. And to be a business athlete is to be someone who looks at those curveballs, who starts in the storm, who has the courage to do it in a world full of people who are fearful playing defense. And I promise you, you go do those things today and you stick with it for the next few months, and it will change the trajectory of your life. But you've got to get off your butt, and you must start right now.